Hi, and a very, very good evening to all of you. On behalf of Her World India, I, Rakhi Bakshi, welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen, friends and well-wishers, supporters, and people, all those people who encourage us. We are very grateful to Miranda House's Policy Center and Gender Lab of Delhi University, and they have been really, really sharing the shoulder with us, supporting us all through. We're also thankful to all the people who've been watching us for some time. And our only idea is to actually lend insights coming from our esteemed speakers and experts. During COVID times, we had a number of such speakers who joined us and shared their knowledge, insights, which has only inspired and encouraged us. So again, another session, which is very, very important. We are talking about women's health. We are talking about how diabetes is particularly affecting women's health, because it's not only one disease, but I think it has many dimensions. And who else but we thought Dr. Aarti Bhan, who is an expert on this, endocrinologist and diabetologist, and somebody who comes with years of experience as far as medical science and health issues are concerned. We are very thankful she's joining us right from US, and it's early morning there, as I'm told. Thank you so much. You're rising with your cup of coffee, it seems, Dr. Bhan, but we really welcome you here in India.
Thank you so much for having me over, Rakhi. This is it's, as you said, a very, very important topic, women's health, diabetes. And as we know that, diabetes is prevalent in India and the numbers are going up every year. So it's very relevant to everybody. I don't think that we have anybody in our families that we don't know of who has diabetes. So this is extremely time sensitive.
Also, talk about the current time. I mean, as far as women are concerned, is the risk higher than men?
So, it's very interesting that you brought it up. I assumed that the risk probably would be higher in women, but it really doesn't pan out. So there is a thing called the National Family Health Survey that India does every 3 years. So they take a cross section of the population, and it seems that it's almost equal, men and women. Sometimes in the very old, above 65 and stuff, it gets skewed a little bit more towards women, but overall it's gender equal.
Okay. Because the idea to talk to you also is, Dr. Bhan, is to break some of the myths that people have here. So, for example, how women would look at diabetes, for example, then they think that eating everything is all right, or doing whatever they do in terms of their daily routine is right. But what would you really recommend in terms of very simple routine, the simple practices that women should adapt and adopt so that they have a healthy lifestyle? Because lifestyle is something which is very crucial, as you would also say.
Absolutely. So, I always tell my patients, or, my family members, that women generally get an early warning sign about diabetes when they first get pregnant. So a vast majority of women will find out that they have diabetes in pregnancy, and it generally goes away after their delivery, but that's their first warning sign that something is wrong. So most women who have diabetes in pregnancy then after 5 to 10 years develop type 2 diabetes. So at that point, that's their first warning that now is the time when we need to modify our lifestyle. So they're not major things that need to be done. The most important part really is, I just think of it in 2 or 3 points, basically. Watch the intake of processed food. I think the amount of processed food that we have in our diets right now is unimaginable. We eat out much more than we used to a few decades ago. The amount of snacks that are unhealthy and processed, that intake has gone up so much. And look at your lifestyle in terms of physical activity. It doesn't have to be that you have to go to the gym. Increase your physical activity by just simple things. You can take the stairs at work. You can walk to maybe a place rather than taking your car or a method of transportation. Find 15 to 20 minutes in the day to take a walk or do something. And if there are days when you have more time, then you can do extra exercise. And the third most important thing is to get adequate sleep and stress reduction. We are living in a 24/7 world, and especially after COVID, I feel that a lot of people are working from home, and the strict boundaries that we used to have in the past, when you went to work, you came back from work, and there was a strict a stop sign that work is done, that has gone away. That's blended into, so people are working at unimaginable hours now. Sleep is disrupted, and it's a huge factor for stress and type 2 diabetes. So if you just do those three things, I think will be a huge modification in the numbers of people that we are getting with diabetes now.
So Dr. Bhan, are you also suggesting that pre-COVID, and we are of course not through and the COVID is not still over, but would you see a pattern here as you're suggesting right now that COVID and the pandemic and the kind of situation of crises actually triggered more cases?
I believe there are two things to it. So COVID by itself, we know that caused diabetes, new onset diabetes in a lot of people. And then I also feel that, for instance, in the US now, I have people that fall into two categories. I had people who had very poorly controlled diabetes, and during COVID, because they were home, they were able to eat more healthy, they were able to pay more attention to their health, they did so much better during COVID. And then there was the other subset who tended to eat more, got stressed, they didn't pay attention to their diet and lifestyle, and they got worse diabetes. So it all depends on how the individual reacted to the epidemic, really. In India, when the COVID, when the peak happened in the earlier part of the year, I was part of a group through my community. We were doing the COVID helplines. And when I was calling these people, I could tell that a lot of them during lockdown really didn't pay attention to lifestyle. They really couldn't go out for a walk, and they would be, sitting at home. And what do? You eat. So a lot of people gained weight during that time, and it was a very stressful situation with the lockdowns and everything else that was going on. And that, I think, played a role into the numbers going up. But like I said, the COVID virus itself caused a lot of people to have new onset diabetes. So yes, it was a double whammy, I would say, in certain places.
One question which is not directly here related to women's health, but something that has come up in India, because some of these young people we suddenly saw losing lives. I mean, in terms of the silent heart attack, what we call. So young people, suddenly one found that the other day in the morning, he or she was no more. And they were very young people, including one professor in Miranda House College who was very young and we lost her. So why is this happening now? Some people say, I mean, you would say exercising is good, but what is it all about? There is a certain mystery about.
Yeah, the Indian population tends to have a lot of silent coronary artery disease, which we do not know about. So we hear about these young men. It's mostly men. I'd see a few women, but it's mostly men, young in their 30s. They tend to be relatively healthy, not very overweight. Some of them might be actually people, well, he goes to the gym all the time. How did this happen? But there's an epidemic of coronary artery disease, which we don't know about. And these people, in spite of looking healthy from the outside, really don't have healthy coronaries. And it's a massive MI. It's very, very typical to, India. I don't hear of it so much here, that young men just, drop dead. But it's been happening, and it's something very, very important that we have to look at. There are studies going on in the US now. They're looking at the Southeast Asian diaspora to see what is causing these sudden deaths in these young people. So there's definitely risk factor modification has to start very, very early, even when we are children, basically.
So what kind of trend would you suggest here in India? I mean, for example, we are looking at development, we are looking at an urban population. There is this, I would say, spending boom, which is happening. I mean, people, who are, really trying to buy more, consume more. That kind of, the millennials are there who have aspirations, ambitions. All this is coupling to, people adopting new life standards, which is part of our transition towards development, so to say. But how would you really link it to lifestyle, diabetes?
I think the lifestyle really has worsened. I mean, when I look at my family members back in India, I don't think the work-life balance is as it used to be in the past. People are working unimaginable hours. Some of them are, employed in these multinationals. So so they're living in India, working on US time, or it's just not really good for the body. And there's so much stress, and I don't think people are paying attention to their the stress levels in their life. And then the pollution. I mean, look at Delhi today, the air quality index. All of these things, I think, play a role into what is going on. The lifestyle in India really at this point is, for the young people that are in the workforce right now, I don't think it's very healthy, and it has to change.
And this type 1, type 2, then also gestational, diabetes problems, and especially women we're talking about. How do you really break the structure for them? And what is really good for women to adopt as their
Type 1
lifestyle?
diabetes is a completely different situation. It's an autoimmune disease. It's completely unpredictable. There is some family history behind it, but most of the time it's completely unpredictable. It's your own immune system. It attacks your pancreas. It's not really related to lifestyle or anything. And the most important part that I actually see is a very disturbing trend in India, that people lump all diabetes into one category. Type 1 is a completely different disease. It does not respond to diet restriction. It does not respond to lifestyle. You need insulin. So the moment a patient has a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, they are going to need insulin, whether they're going to take injections, whether they're going to take it through a pump, it doesn't matter. Those people should not be treated with unorthodox treatments. And it's very dangerous, because we've seen people actually die because they stopped insulin because somebody told them, oh, I'll cure your diabetes with this, that, and the other. That's a completely different situation. Type 2 diabetes and gestational diabetes. So gestational diabetes occurs when a woman is pregnant and the blood glucose levels rise. Unfortunately, even though India has very good, our medical guidelines are extremely well stated. Our physicians are extremely well educated, but for some reason, the screening for gestational diabetes does not occur uniformly. The treatment of gestational diabetes, unfortunately, does not occur uniformly, and I don't understand the reason behind it. Some of it might be financial, some of it might be social. Patients may not have access to healthcare, but I even see people amongst our friends and families where I find out a person is pregnant, and then they call me and say, hey, my blood sugar is high, and they were never screened with a glucose tolerance test. And how did that happen? Why didn't you get screening between 24 and 26 weeks, which is the standard across the world? Or they're told, well, just watch your carbohydrate intake and it'll be fine. There's no monitoring involved. And gestational diabetes has such a huge impact on not only the mom but on the baby. And babies from gestational diabetes mothers tend to have diabetes down the road, obesity down the road. So it's a huge chain that continues on. So it's a very, very important thing that you have to look at gestational diabetes and treatment properly. And not only that, after the woman delivers, after a certain period of time, they should be screened for diabetes again. Did it go away? Because some people, it doesn't immediately go away. It continues, and then they turn on to type 2 diabetes right away. And the counseling of that woman at that point is so critical that, listen, in 5 to 10 years, you may have permanent diabetes. This is the time for action. And type 2 diabetes can be prevented. The time to diabetes can be increased. That's a huge, huge impact that you can have on the health of this woman.
I think that's a lot of relevant inputs that you've just shared, Dr. Artiban, and we're really, really thankful, because a lot of women who still do not have that kind of awareness, that kind of access to education, where they really understand the processes of diseases very well. And we only need to, and that's what Herbal India is doing, is to trying to bring to them simply and very, very, in very normal terms as to what is it that they should do. So, for example, what are these tips that normal women should adopt? And my second question is there a pattern related to geographical locations, population, or regional areas? For example, in India, we have variety, in terms of diversity. Every area has different geography, culture, customs. How do you really look at it? Is there a pattern you can see?
Again, if you look at the National Family Health Survey that comes out every year, every 3 years, the rural populations tend to be relatively little protected, although I have to say that the rural numbers are going up now too. It's urban populations. States like Kerala, they're very high. The northeastern states are lower in terms of incidence of diabetes. UP, Delhi, these tend to be very high in terms of the numbers of diabetes. So I would say, don't even look at regional stuff. I would say, look at a person's risk. What are your risk factors? Talk to your physician. We tend to go to doctors when we are ill. there's no concept of a well checkup. Like when do you go to a physician and say, can you just check me out to see if my blood pressure is fine, things like that. Now there are some companies which do health screening for their employees, which I think is a great idea to have something done for people. But go to your physician, see what is my risk, what can I do on my own. And a lot of people ask me, well, what about yoga, and what about, it's great, do the yoga, do your health benefits of meditation. Those are all ancillary. But if you have diabetes, you have to still take medication. I'm not saying that don't do the other parts that you need to do. If you believe in if somebody asks me about an herbal medication, first of all, I'm not sure what is in there in terms of additives. But if somebody tells me, I take methi dana, which is something which is relatively innocuous, I'm fine with that. Go ahead and take your methi dana, but make sure that you take your medicine along with it. Make sure you exercise along with it. I'm going to have, the Karela juice. I'm perfectly fine with that. Go drink your juice if you want to, but take your medicine at the same time. Don't stop the medication and go on to taking these other remedies. So if it's going to be what you call it, additive, I'm fine with that. I don't stop people from taking medication. Take cinnamon if you want to, whatever thing you think. But the pills that come in bottles, that I'm a little worried about sometimes, because we've seen reports in India where they have medications which are supposed to be diabetes cures, and then they find out they have metformin in them all along, which is fine. It's a good medication to be on. But then the patient is, basically duped, thinking that this herbal medication really cured me, but they really were taking metformin the whole time. So those are the kind of things that, get me worried about taking these medications in a pill. But if you're doing it through diet and exercise, great, because it's probably safe. It's not going to help.
And sometimes women tend to think that it's all related to weight. So there's a lot of emphasis on the exterior, Dr. Bhan, rather than, internally making yourself stronger, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, weight is a huge deal, of course, but it's not only the weight, it's the stress part of it, the lack of sleep. Why does the weight gain happen? Because you're not exercising, because you're not getting enough sleep. There's no stress reduction. So you're not going to feel like exercising if you don't have enough of that balance in your life. And some people happen to be stress eaters. So if they're stressed, they'll probably eat more than they should. So these are all, this all connected, and we don't pay attention to all of that.
Mm-hmm. How far, if you look at India, you've already shared so many inputs here, but when you look at India and Indian women, and we're also talking about their health, and I think, we at Her World India, or I, Rakhi, would think that lots need to be done, whether they are, health is accessible to a lot of women, especially in rural areas, or whether women themselves are taken care of. There are societal reasons, there are customs and traditions where women think that, their health comes second and not first.
Absolutely.
How would you really look at that? Yeah.
So, I come to India every 2 to 3 years, and things, for a person who comes from outside, things become a little bit more clearer, because when you're living in, you don't really notice it. So about 10 to 15 years ago, I would come home and, you would see somebody who's overweight, but they really weren't aware of it. But now that I come back to India, I see that people are, especially in the cities, that's where, I tend to go, they're much more aware, which makes me feel very happy. I have cousins who go to the gym now who would never have thought about, exercising. And I have people who run marathons now. I see one of my friends on Facebook doing a 5K or a 10K. It makes me feel so happy, because these are things which we didn't do before. When we were growing up, who thought about exercise? Your exercise was going to the school bus stop, coming back, and you would get a couple of miles and just, walking to school, kind of a thing. So it was already incorporated in your days. But now people don't walk anywhere. People don't, those activities of daily living have come down. So now that people are making time for exercise, making time for themselves, it's really nice to see. I wish this movement spreads. The yoga part of it, I see all my friends on, they're doing yoga live on Facebook. It's very nice to see, because people are paying attention to their health. I wish it spreads more, the movement spreads more, and people are, talking about pollution, trying to do things about, oh, they have an air purifier at home. I'd never seen an air purifier in India, 5 years ago, but now they have those things. So every little bit helps, I think. And awareness I think, is improving, and that's the main thing.
When I was trying to read much more on it, and then the research would also say, sometimes when you read the figures, for example, even in US, So the numbers are rising, and world over,
Absolutely.
they're saying that diabetes, will be becoming a disease bomb kind of thing. How much of a scare it is right now in front of us?
Huge, because diabetes by itself, it's not the blood sugar content, it's what it does to your quality of life and the years of life that you lose. Heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, eye issues, foot problems. It's such a huge impact on a person's quality of life that it reduces your quality of life, even if you may have lived the time that you would have lived, but the time that you, in the last few years of your life, that productive time or the enjoyable time is gone. This person does not now have sensation in their foot is amputated, they're on dialysis, the quality of life is really poor. So it's a huge impact, huge.
And some of the problems, for example, related to fertility, related to maybe a regular menstrual cycle, what are these other complications that women might have?
So, it starts with usually polycystic ovarian syndrome. So the young woman in her teens, she has irregular periods. People just, they don't think about it. Oh, you'll get, once you get older, these periods will regulate. So they don't get any care for that. And the girl remains, she has PCOS underlying, which doesn't get treated. When it's time for her to have kids, since she has irregular cycles, she's not ovulating, then it becomes an issue. Then let's say this woman gets pregnant either by, spontaneously or by assisted reproductive technologies, then she gets gestational diabetes. The baby tends to be heavier, then she has type 2 diabetes. So it's a continuum. It starts in your teens and then it continues until you get pregnant. It may uncover itself then, and then 5 to 10 years later, this person may have type 2 diabetes. So these things have to be looked at right at the beginning. We have to make sure that our children are healthy, because our children are exposed to so much advertising from the junk food companies. And
Exactly.
when we were growing up, there was hardly any junk food around. It wasn't as available. It was in the background, but it wasn't as available. But now, it's ubiquitous. So I feel bad for the kids these days because they have so much access to food, which is not healthy.
But how
And
do you
this,
really control that? Because it's also, I mean, sorry to say this, but it's somewhere connected to, again, urbanization, prosperity, symbols, like if you're eating a pizza or a burger, it's like, you can afford it.
absolutely,
So those kind
absolutely.
of things. But how would you really educate many of them, especially so many young
It
girls?
starts from the parents, though. It starts from the parents, because the parents have to model good behavior. It has to be that, listen, the pizza is a treat, and it's something which we'll do on a certain basis. It can't be a weekly thing. This is going out for an ice cream is a treat. So it's not something which we have to do on a daily basis, because money is not an issue, and kids now have access to more than when we were growing up. So it's the parents who have to model the behavior. That's not a question of and when you're kids, you can pretty much eat anything and it doesn't really stick to you. If you see, like, my boys, they can eat pretty much everything and nothing happens to them. But then those habits develop. So they call me the food police in my house. But that's how it is. I tell them that even though you may not be heavy now, what can happen in 5 years when you get older, your metabolism slows down. And especially with boys, you tend to, when they're in their teens, they can eat a mountain and nothing happens to them because they're metabolizing it so quickly. But then those habits develop. And then when they are in their 20s and 30s and suddenly they gain weight, they don't understand what happened. Well, because you had unhealthy habits to begin with. So it starts with the child, really has to be looked at that point.
I really they take your term, and I borrow it from here now on. The food policing actually has to happen, I think, in every house, and mothers like you should really inspire their kids to eat healthy, and that should become a norm, I think. Any such experience or case that you'd like to share here, Dr. Bhan, where you've felt that women who come to you, the diabetes on a serious level and on other levels, that how can we really make them more confident about understanding and about dealing with it?
So it's not only, when I think about women and diabetes, it's a little, so I think the questions that I ask sometimes are a little different than when a man comes through. When a man comes to see you for diabetes, they will bring up the fact that they have erectile dysfunction, the sexual functioning is affected, and they're generally very open about talking about that. The women don't talk about that at all until I, bring it up, because for women, they don't even connect it with the diabetes. It's very well known that for men, there's a connection, but there's a connection for women too. They have more vaginal yeast infections because their blood sugar is. They have more urinary tract infections. They have vaginal dryness. They have neuropathy, which causes decreased sensation. So their sexual, satisfaction is lower, but they don't bring those up until I do in the clinic. And it's all connected to diabetes. And then once they realize that this is connected, there's another little, incentive to bring the blood sugar down or to do a healthier option. So those kind of things, make a difference, because that's so much related to your healthy well-being. As if you're having constant urinary tract infections, if you're constantly feeling unwell, how are you going to want to go to exercise? How are you going to want to do anything for yourself? So those are the kind of things that you have to talk to women about. And during the menopause transition, it becomes even worse, because the changes in the hormones that are occurring has a big impact on the blood sugar. It has so I explain to women that this is what's going to happen. This is how it plays into your blood sugar being a little more unsteady right now. This is how we'll go through it. And it makes a big difference to them, because the menopause time is very, challenging for these women. So they're sweating and I'm asking them to exercise. They're having a hot flush and I'm asking them to go outside and walk. Those are the kind of things that have to be dealt with. As physicians, sometimes we don't pay as much attention to women's health in that area.
So you're saying that counseling is required, and then also, this is one disease that you have to look at, mind, body, and soul all together. And this is one disease which is also kind of an axis. Once you control it or understand it, then you are controlling many other diseases, actually, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes. So when are you coming to India next time, Dr. Ban? That's my question.
Hopefully COVID settles down. We were planning last year, and then we were planning the year before that. So I'm waiting for this mess to settle down, and definitely we'll be there.
Any message to lots of women who will be watching you and who love to?
It's up to you. You guys are in control of your bodies, and you're in control of your kids. So do the best you can. Take care of yourself first, because remember what they say in the airplanes. Put your mask on when the airplane loses pressure. Put your own mask on. So if you are not taking care of yourselves, you're not taking care of other people as well. So take care of yourself first. That's what I would say.
So as Dr. Aarti Bhan says, take care of yourself, be important, feel important, and it's you who really matters, isn't it? Dr. Aarti Bhan, it's been a super, super, super pleasant experience for all of us here. And on behalf of my team at Herbal India, I really thank you. Wish you all the best. And I'm sure that not only women's health, but how we're looking at health in general, so that everybody is happy, in harmony and peace, because good health is also about peace, isn't it? And that's what we're
building. It is about peace. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Rakhi.
Take lots of care. And I think my team is also telling you here, thank you, Doc. Somebody, Faraz, from AK to everyone here. Thank you, Doc, they say.
Welcome. Stay well.
Any question anybody wants to ask here? No, they're thanking you actually for all the inputs that you've shared here. And we'll keep in touch.
Thank you, folks.
And
look good evening.
Yeah.
And stay safe. COVID's going up, it looks like.
Take care. Take care. All the best.